Champion Rare Classic in the 24-25 season was one of my primary strategies on Sorare Fantasy Football for trying to get my hands on some jackpot wins. I was using cards from all across every previous season of Sorare of players that were playing in the top 5 leagues in European football, with the aim of the game being simple: win enough cards from the in-season issue of all the players and leagues and clubs that are available to be able to build an in-season lineup to compete for cash on the leaderboards. And across the whole season we had some success in it, but this was a brand new dynamic on Sorare in terms of how cash could be won, and as well the different limitations, restrictions, options that you had for building your team. But with the announcements we've had for Sorare 26 being that the same structure for Champion Euro will be in place for the most part, but the classic mode is going to be moving to SO7, 7-a-side fantasy football, which is something I am very excited about, because one thing that I love about Sorare Fantasy Football is the different combinations of teams that you can build, that really reflect, the players that you're backing, the clubs that you're following, the collection that you've built, whatever it might be, to, stamp your mark on the leaderboard and bag the wins that only you can be bagging, as it were. And we're still to see some of the final bits and details around SO7 and Classic overall, how it will work, as well as, the new in-season format, what leagues are going to get league-specific treatment, that sort of thing. But in lieu of those developments coming out, I've been very active in the market. There's some things that I can just see very clearly the writing on the wall for, and I've had to make sure that FC Barcelona and my Sorare club, we're staying one step ahead of the game. We're moving into the market and we're picking up those pieces that we want, that we need, and maybe just a little bit of insurance or a little bit of, it's just so cheap, why not? Go pick it up. And with these moves now done, my gallery's in a little bit of a different position, feels a little bit stronger and a little bit more rounded. We're now waiting for the next wave announcements to come from Sorare before we press on any further with the the direction that we're moving the club in, as it were. But there will be, make no mistake about it, some things in the new version of the classic game mode, in particular with Champion Europe, that I wanted to make sure I've got into my club. I've covered those bases, I've crossed those T's, I've dotted those I's. And in the video today we'll go through that, as well as a few other bits and bobs around preparing for SO7 for Classic next season, Champion Europe as a whole, how it's kind of sitting, the dynamic around it, all that good stuff. If you are brand new to Sorare and you've not even opened up your account yet, there's a link in the description in this video and in the pinned comment that will get you $50, pounds, euros, whatever your currency is, of market credit to help you go and reinforce your squad ahead of the new season. Also in the description of the video I'll put the beginner tutorials and guides and all that kind of thing so you can get up and running. But if you do get stuck, if you've got any questions, just jump into the comment section and I'll come and sort you out. But yeah, at any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. This feels like it's going to be a very, every season of Sorare has been very interesting, as it were, but this move, this dynamic change between in-season being 5-a-side fantasy football still and us now gaining 7-a-side fantasy football for the classic cards, it feels like this might be an even more interesting season, as it were, and we'll get into why in the video as well, of course. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it, because last time I was on doing this type of market activity type video or whatever, I just went into the market and picked up this special edition summer series Antoine Griezmann to be able to play in the Club World Cup special weeklies that Sorare were running. And as you can see here from Griezmann, I think we only got one start in the end, but he played in 3 game weeks and he managed to bag us 1 reward. I spent 66 quid on Griezmann before market credits. I forgot to check how much market credits I got there, but with us winning $50 for this win here, he's just about covered the cost of himself. Maybe not quite, still got a wee bit of work to do, but very lovely card that I've kind of long wanted a Griezmann into the club. Getting a special edition is extra nice as well, and getting a little bit of some sort of special edition utility out of him just made it a little bit more feasible. And I'm really glad that we managed to snatch a little win in the end, despite Atletico Madrid going out in the group stages. But just before I got this Griezmann, I'd added some more Spain under-21 players into the gallery for the Euro under-21s, because it's a competition that I always love playing Sorare with. And Spain didn't do too good, obviously, knocked out by the eventual winners, England. And since then, I added in a Mosquera, a Balikwisha and a Ben Negren down to transfer speculation. It looks like Mosquera is going to be going to Arsenal. I don't think that's that great, but I do have that Valencia collection, and for the price he was at, I thought we'll just get him when we've got that cover, in case he starts, in case he's amazing, or in case he goes somewhere different, because it seems to be he is moving. Negren has moved to Celtic, so that's an absolute Brucey bonus of a win there. Love getting those transfer plays when they come off, especially nice and cheap as well, because Negren, we picked him up here for 25. He subsequently went up as high as £56, £42 for the the latest version of him. Do you know, no, Denmark isn't what, I was thinking Norway there for a second, maybe it will still be in season for a minute, but it won't. But from what we've seen in the past on Sorare with Kuhn and Jota and a few of our Celtic players, I've got, full confidence that Negren is going to be an absolute ripper, and I'm really glad that one's paid off. It's kind of made buying the Balikwisha worth it, even if Balikwisha doesn't move on, and we need to take a bit of a haircut for that because I could have not bought any of them, waited for news, and I'd have paid the same amount for Negren than I did for Balikwisha and Negren. Now, this isn't my first rodeo when it comes to buying, transfer rumour targets, because I've done it a bunch of times, and you tend to get a bit of a sniff or a bit of an intuition around the ones that could be real or the ones that could work out very well, or the ones that are not worth taking the gamble on just yet. You can maybe wait for the move to materialise. They don't get into the team right away. Their price might kind of crater from there or whatever. But really happy with the Negren situation. And then just kind of went out, and with Koki Machida moving to Hoffenheim, I'm a big Koki Machida fan, the Japanese Rolls Royce, as you know. And back in the day when the J League first came on, I only had 2 Antlers cards. I had Ueda and I had Machida, and they were in my stack with Tanaka and Hitate and these types of guys, and just vibes, throwback times. You can see the price of them here on the secondary market, very, very nominal. And Ueda at Feyenoord maybe makes a transfer, maybe stays at Feyenoord and kicks ass again, could be fine, of course, but I just thought, why not? Let's just go and pick them up, put them in the gallery, because I will want to use Koki Machida next year if he's in the Bundesliga. And then when I seen the price of these other 3 guys, like Sekigawa's always been okay, hasn't he? Araki was a bit of a wonder kid and has kind of, fizzled out a little bit, but a player I did always want, just never was prepared to pay the price for him. And as he's like £2 or something. Him and Sekigawa were absolutely nothing, and we picked up Alano. Now, what I think this is a lovely kind of display of here is getting a 2% classic collection isn't that expensive, isn't that hard, especially if you can be quite creative with the players that you're targeting and what you're really looking to gain out of it. Like the Alano card is the one I care the least about, and it's not even, he was £1.60. His scores they're not great, are they? But he's a random guy that can just drop a 78 out of nowhere, so it made that quite easy. So the full 5-man doesn't need to be Champ Euro utility, for example, and there's only one card here that gives that. Maybe Ueda in the future could, but not something we're holding our breath on, don't get me wrong. But 2% collection bonus is nothing to be sniffed at, and if you do have guys that have got high XP anyway, or you're going to keep them for a long time and get them quite high XP, is you've seen on my channel, and if you're new around here, feel free to just catch out some content from the back end of the season there. But when I've got high XP, decent collection bonus, which is normally a bit higher than 2% granted, and for clarity for anyone that's new around here, the amount of cards that you own from an individual club in an individual season builds into a collection, almost like a sticker book. They get points for how long, the longer you hold them. All these guys' score will double from 10 to 20 once I've held them for 90 days, and you can get extra bonuses if you're the first person to own them, if it's the serial number matches their shirt number, lots of other stuff going on there. And the milestones are all here on the club page. You can all check it out and see it for yourself. It's on screen, you can pause it if you want to see it in a little bit more detail there. But by getting to that 100 point threshold on 5 cards, it would need to be, if you're buying old versions of them from other managers on the secondary market, which will be cheaper, and you do need to have that kind of coherent strategy around it. You can get a lot of mileage out of classic cards now. I think points per pound at rare level is incredible. At limited, it's even more exciting, especially if you're on a lower budget. There's a lot more variety available now, and because of the amount of seasons that we do have in the history books, like this Antlers squad and maybe 1 or 2 other ones that we'll come to look at shortly, if you know what you're looking for and you can be quite creative around what it is you need, you can build some really interesting strategies here. And with it being SO7, which is like new ground that's unyet tapped, nobody really knows what great scores will look like, how tough it will be to avoid DNPs, what a big score looks like, yada yada. Nobody knows what the meta is going to be. No one knows everything yet. Maybe more will become clear to theory craft, hypothesize around once we get some more information from announcements or whatever. But I, number one, want to make sure I've got everyone in my club that I can reasonably bring in that I think can add some viability, some utility, and also kind of complement the wider thing of this being my club, my fantasy football collection, my fantasy football team, however you want to think of it as much as possible. And Machida isn't a superstar. Maybe you're going to do this with a better quality player, a tier 1, a star, whatever. But this is just one that I've got a bit of a soft spot for. And because I just went and going bam, 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 brought the 5 cards in, I thought it was a really good example of, don't rule out jumping into Classic to build up a couple of pieces to give you some extra options or extra viability for a competition or for a region. I then went back into the market to get Hayato Inamura, who is all but set to complete his transfer to Celtic, and I really just had a hunch on this one again as well. 300k, young Japanese guy. How did Celtic not complete that? It seemed like quite a credible rumour when the news came out, and there was very few hurdles to this actually getting done. So picking him up for 19 quid, who being a J League card, we will get a bit of in-season action out of him. Let's see how much he actually gets selected or whatever. We'll see that in the fullness of time. But then I managed to add in, again for very nominal fees here, a little bit of the Seattle guys from the CONCACAF Champions League winning collection that I'm almost finished with already, by the way. I got a Cancelo to help me with my Kevin De Bruyne as well. I'm not sure he comes back to Europe anytime soon. I was so surprised he was £6, especially with the Club World Cup going on. I never really managed to get any utility out of him for that. I'm a big fan of Cancelo, huge fan of him. And he's actually a funny one because the first time I came across Cancelo was on FIFA when he played for Inter Milan. I'll never forget this. He had like a 79 or a 77 gold rated right back card or whatever. And I just remember thinking, this guy's just like Ronaldo, but at right back. He was big, he was strong, he was quick, and he was a 79, so his stats weren't wild or anything. But I've always just watched out for him since then. And it took him ages to get Sorare cards, it really did. And he was super astronomically priced. He was one of the best cards in the game, if not the best card in the game, when Man City came onto the platform. He was absolutely slaying it. If you remember Man City's treble winning season, it was absolutely wild. He was just absolutely ripping all over the place. I'm not too sure what season that is here exactly. There's a few injuries that kind of break it up, but a hugely formidable player. And get him for £6 on Classic, even though he's in Saudi Arabia, then now plays internationals. You'll get him in for Asian Champions League and whatever. But £6, I didn't really think twice about that. Great guy, and if he comes back to Europe, it's only going to be at a good club, and he's world class in my opinion. So love that. And then as you'll see here, we brought back Eduardo Ren Camavinga. Now this card is special on so many levels. I got a Camavinga from Ren when he first came out. This was a card I was dying to buy. As soon as I started playing Sorare, Camavinga was one of these guys where I hope Ren get a license and everyone else on the platform is like oblivious to Camavinga, a little bit ignorant, or maybe it's just the French guys that are excited about him, and then I can get one cheap enough before he really becomes who he is. He managed to get 9 issues of this series of a Ren card at rare. I think at limited he maybe got to 10 or 15, something like that. So Camavinga got 56 Ren cards before in that January he moved to Real Madrid, was a wildly successful signing, won the Champions League essentially on arrival, and he's gone on to amazing things. We all know Camavinga, he's an amazing player. Of course, not the best on Sorare, he's pretty good, but he's not like amazing. But he's a great player, I'm a big fan of him, and this was a card I was longing for, so when it came out, I managed to pick one up. I got one of the rares. He's got 45 limiteds, 9 rares, and the only reason I knew for certain that he had more than 10 limiteds is because number 10 is his shirt number, and the number 10 Camavinga, well, the number 27 is owned by Gerard Piqué, but the number 10 is owned by your very own John Nellis, and that was a card that I know he was buzzing about when he got it, because it's the only jersey number Ren Camavinga rookie card, as you would think of it as, that exists, so kudos to him. The one I now own is number 9, so it was the last ever Ren card before he had his transfer to Real Madrid. The original one I got was the number 3. Kev CU22 won the auction for £1,500, 0.6 Ethereum at the time. He then done a deal with me where I sent him João Felix, which at the time would have been worth a lot more than what it is. Keylor Navas, who I've actually now got back at the club. I actually forgot that I won that Navas, so I'm actually quite cool. I'm actually quite glad I did bring that back. Diego Costa, who was worth a fair bit at the time, he just went back to Brazil after that whole thing with Atletico Madrid where he wasn't coming back or whatever, and a super rare Mikel Cuisance. So I thought that was actually quite a good trade. I was really happy to put the value of those cards into a prospect, into a prodigy like Camavinga. I managed to hold on to it for a year, and I can't remember why, but I ended up moving it on. I think I was liquidating a bunch of cards because it went into a big pile here to Super Usman of some super rares that I wasn't really using anymore. Koki Machida being one of them, of course. I used to have Machida rare and super rare back in those days. That was good fun. But also Ferran Torres. That wasn't the original Ferran, that was another one that I got in a trade for something else, I forget. But Camavinga, Memphis Depay and Cherky. Really sold my soul on this one, but hey, £7.5 grand. isn't too bad at the time. So so to buy him back now for 25 quid, I just could not resist to do that. We've actually done very well on that rookie card back in the day, 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. And to pick him up now for 25 quid, it's a beautiful card. I'm a huge fan of him. And finally, I've got a Camavinga back in. With it being the last ever Ren card, I think that's kind of cool as well. If it's not the same one that I owned before, I don't know if I'm going to go to those lengths to return it, but I'm happy enough with this one. And for the fee, like, why not? I then went on and I bought a Zubeldia for £1 because he plays sometimes, and I've already got the Sociedad collection. He can be okay. He's quite projectable. Like, you kind of know when he's going to play. He's not great. He's okay. But he was £1. And then I was still in that kind of Camavinga mode. So there were some cards that I went and picked up here that I think I need and some that I just wanted. And alongside that, that Camavinga bug kind of got under my skin a little bit. And I finally went and got out a Karamoko Dembele. Now, I'm kind of hopeful this season could be a bit of a breakout year for him. He did okay at QPR on loan last year in little spells and little flutters. So I'm hopeful if he goes back to France with Brest kind of licking their wounds and consolidating their squad or whatever, he could maybe break through there. Last time I checked, I think that's where he's at the moment contractually. And this one was actually quite a sweet deal. We did a trade with Pavel where, I just took some in-season non-EU cards as well as a classic Cedric Suarez and Wylan Cyprian, who's in China now. And just kind of rolled up a bunch of guys I didn't care about and turned them into a guy I do care about. The value of all the cards is kind of inconsequential. The only one I'm a wee bit like, I'd like to have kept him is Luca Romero. But now that while he's in season, for as long as he's in season, need to kind of capitalise on a little bit of that value. And the guys from the K-League that I've won, I didn't care about them when I won them. I won them as like tier 4s and 2s. I think one of them actually might have been a tier 3 or something good, in fact. But to turn those kind of guys that I'm not gaining any value from, I'm not using for any utility. Maybe Karamoko is going to be the same, but at least it's like one cool guy that I actually like that does that rather than these 5 guys. And then this one kind of fell in the middle between Koki Machida and Camavinga, and that's Cho Chima Fujita. Now, I've again been a big fan of this kid. He got promoted with this team to Kuma Vortis the year prior to this rookie card. He was a lot cheaper at the time when it comes to Sorare and whatever. But at 17, whatever age he was in J2, he like led the team to promotion, smashing in penalties, taking set pieces, might have even been the captain. And I went out and I made sure I got his #1 rookie card. It was a proud. This one went to Pavel eventually as well. Was this in a wee liquid? Yeah, with all my Sam Nicholsons. Oh no, this was what got me Gabri Vega. Oh, that's not a bad deal, is it? But yeah, I kind of traded him in with Fabian de Kaiser, Sam Nicholson, Lung, a bunch of dross really. Which, fair enough, that was a good enough deal, I suppose. But he's now moved to the Bundesliga to St. Pauli, but he was getting links to Besiktas. He's been doing very, very well in Belgium, and I just thought, I should get, if he goes to Besiktas, he could be very, very good. Turkey plays all the time, so it doesn't really matter like what region it is. He could be filling arenas and all-stars and specials and whatever if he does play, which I would have expected him to. But that move didn't happen, and he's actually went to St. Pauli. And I could see this guy playing for St. Pauli week in, week out. We see Asian players do very well in the Bundesliga historically. I'm not holding my breath that he's going to be a smasher, but I think he's going to be viable at the very least, and I'm glad not this 15 of that we've got in for like £8 or something like that. He's kind of dropped a wee bit in price since I bought him perhaps, but I got the rookie, so the rookie you'd always expect there's a wee bit more on that. So that's a kind of fun one, in between Machida and Camavinga, like I said. But one of those classic collections that I recently kind of got off the ground again, as it were, or got myself back into because of where classic prices went, was Lille. I went back into the market and I reacquainted myself with Jonathan David. Jonathan David was the first ever #1 win card that I ever won, was a Jonathan David as a star rare. Long sold him, brought him back in for peanuts. But I've always been a Jonathan Bamba fan. I've always been a Jonathan Ikone fan. Of the Lille Jonathans, no biases here. Ikone is my least favourite, don't get me wrong. But I brought in those guys for absolute pennies at the back end of last season. I also added in a Sven Botman, who's now at Newcastle United, as well as, I'm sure there was somebody else. And Leo Jardim, the backup goalkeeper at Lille that's now a #1 goalkeeper out in Brazil with Vasco da Gama or something like that. And I added to that collection, guys. And the biggest way yet in the video, I added in the man, the myth, the legend. For all you guys that have seen me building common lineups for the last 2 or 3 years, he's one of my go-to goalkeepers. For me, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Let's see what happens with him this summer. But French #1, Scudetto winner, Ligue 1 winner, Magic Mike Mignan. Now, this was a deal I have longed to pull off, but he's been such a premium card. He's one of those few goalkeepers that always occupies the top tiers of the reward pool, never really trades for like a cheap goalkeeper price. He's always priced as expensive as goalkeepers normally are, give or take, because of his international viability, as well as AC Milan generally being a pretty good team. Obviously pretty rubbish this year, but again, we managed to get this guy in for a bit of a trade, and this is quite similar to a few of the other trades you've seen me pulling off, where I'm just wrapping up a bunch of guys that I don't care about. Samu Suarez we only brought in for that Euro under 21 thing, so I was now done with him, and the rest of these guys are, who cares about them, along with the arena money that Griezmann won us, and we got Magic Mike Mignan in on this one. And Magic Mike adds into my goalkeeper core here for Champion absolutely fantastically. Now, I've got a few question marks over some of these guys, like Van de Voort, Ruiz Jr., Stoll Dimitrievski, Anthony Lopez, Killison, the Seagrists, but I have got no question over Oblak. I've got his backup as well, so that's doubly secured. Vasilj, Rulli, Butez, and now Magic Mike Mignan. So I've got 5 champ guys that I can call upon, I know are going to be nailed on number ones for this year as things stand at the moment, as well as having kind of the same amount again as guys that could be played throughout the year, just kind of don't know when or how often. But last year, coming into Champion Euro Rare, the way I wanted to build my goalkeepers was I wanted to have 3 in-seasons to get me going, and a 3 classic teams up and running to get me going to win in-season cards. So I need 3 classic keepers for them, and then I want a 4th keeper locked and loaded, so that when I do get enough in-season cards, I can play a team straight away, and the goalkeeper thing doesn't hold me back, because goalkeepers are directly correlated to the amount of teams you can play. So the amount of keepers you've got is the amount of teams that you've got. And with the SO7 also being accompanied by 4 lineups available, I want to have 4 classic goalkeepers between Mignan, Butez, Rulli, Oblak and Vasilj. Between the 5 of them, I know 4 of them can play classic, and if I can probably have the runt of the litter fixture wise and form wise be an all-star team, an arena team, or if I do have like a crap in-season lineup because I'm just winning some tier 4s and 3s in the meantime, buying some cheap guys on the market that haven't broken into the first 11 yet, then they've got a goalkeeper that can get them going, and maybe we get lucky until we reinforce the roster throughout the season like we did last year in the future. So Mignan, I feel, was the first move I had to make really for the SO7 element. A lot of this other stuff that we've been doing has been more market opportunity, like guys that we really like, we believe in, have viability, have a strategy kind of angle or enhancement for my current stuff in the market. I said just nominally priced, we can swoop and pick them up. But the Mignan was one of the big pieces that we've tried to bring in here, and there's another couple to really make his SO7 capable with 4 lineups. Now, this player isn't one of them, right? And he's the last kind of, I just did it because it was fun move, right? But I've just brought back Jesus Medina. I was out at the weekend wearing my NYC shirt from when NYC won MLS Cup, which is obviously some buzz and all that good stuff. And on the back of it, I've got Jesus Medina 19. Funky Cold Medina was a brilliant player that year. He was one of my favourite players in the team. And yeah, he's only got big head cards, so he's the only big head card that I own from when MLS Players Association was the only MLS license that Sorare had, so there was no strips that were allowed to be shown. He's currently playing in Moscow with Barco, who I would hopefully maybe reacquaint myself with also as the summer charges on, but we got him for like £8 or something like that. I've got him printed on a shirt. It's kind of wild that I've not had one in years, because he did kind of vanish and not become very good, and then got good and then too expensive, and now he's just a nobody again. So really glad to pick that up just for some funky cold Medina back in my life. But with me now having this Camavinga, I was open to the possibility of adding in some more strikers, some more firepower into my club. There's been a lot of transfer rumours and developments, actual trades in the market. Players have been bought and sold already in real life, I'm talking about here. And some of them have been very interesting and very exciting. For me, I think, in terms of SO5 prospects, one was Kamal Sulemana, and I don't mind the price of Sulemana. I might try and pick him up. This version of him is way more expensive than the current version of him at Southampton, so I'm not in a rush to do that, as it were. But in line with the Mike Mignan, one thing that you guys will know I'm always cursing is my forward power. That Griezmann card won't really make too much of a difference. May make a bit of a difference, but not a huge one coming into next season. But we needed a bit more firepower. And the Sulemana one might be one we go after. It's a bit of a hunch play. It's a bit of a long shot. But one of the forwards I'm really most excited about coming into this year is Cherki at Man City. I really do think it's going to be electric. I think it's going to be special. And when I was looking at this Ren collection, I totally forgot that Jeremy Doku was in this. Now, Doku is a card, again, I have wanted for so long, but it's always been a little bit stupidly priced because he's one of these wonder kids of Sorare where he got cards when he was like 16 years old in the very first season of Sorare. We'll go and have a look at them in a second. When he was at Anderlecht, this is as far back as his results go on the Sorare's website here. But as you can see, even when he was like breaking in, this is breaking into the Ren team. Oh, look, all these appearances off the bench. He comes off the bench against Shakhtar, is that? How did I know that? Against Shakhtar in 2 legs. It must be the Europa League, and 2 assists to get through in the tie, no doubt, I'm sure. And then follows that up with some starts and double decisives, dropping in 98s, 100, 100. So a guy's always been super expensive because of the hype, the age, whatever. Going to City, that spiked him. Last year he did okay. But I managed to pick him up for 30 quid, just a cash situation there, which was lovely. I would have much rather owned this version of Doku, and I'm not against trying to pick one up at some point. But now that I've got that Ren one, not really in a rush to get 2 Dokus. But this Doku here goes very, very nicely with my Camavinga. That means both of them will now gain 1% once I've had them for 90 days, which is cool. But also he can play in a double forward situation with Cherki. I've also got Guardiola on the Man City team, which is fun. I don't think I've got anyone else, but maybe see how the transfer cycle goes. And the last move that I've made before we get the next layer of detail from Sorare coming out for, you know, how SO7 will look, how the classic setup will be, etc. The last thing I wanted to do, when I was thinking about getting that Doku in, I was so buzzing about it, I was mad excited. And then I was saying to some of you guys, I think it was in some members content, we don't know the formation. Imagine you can go triple forward, triple mid, triple defence, you know, something like that. You can really hone in on what kind of strategy you're trying to run with in your squad. And when I was looking at that Doku and Cherki, I was thinking, who could be a third forward that would go with them really well, that fits in the gallery somehow, or as a player I'm really connected to, or whatever. And then I got a lovely little penny drop moment, and I've went out and added in Savinho, as he's on this card, with the nice Club World Championship crest thing on the Man City shirt, which is cool. And Savio, I had his very first edition of a card, which was at PSV. Had a lot of fun using that when he was at Girona before selling it for some nice profit. And then I've just been waiting for him to get cheap enough at Man City to get a Man City one, because I'm not a big fan of the Girona card personally. The PSV card is okay, but he never really played for them either. It's a kind of rookie kind of vibe, but I don't mind that. But I'd much rather to get a Man City one. I don't have any other Man City collections running that I could get him in. But again, we managed to pull off a bit of a trade here where we just threw some bits and a couple of quid at one of the traders, and we've turned a bunch of random guys into a Champ Euro Classic smasher. And with that kind of roll of business there, like with everything that we've done here, like we've not added on too much really, but an extra 2 like super viable forwards even by themselves anyway. Doku and Savio, also under 23 if we need that next season, and Magic Mike Mignan is a goalkeeper. Never mind just other guys that can play often enough. Zubeldias, Camavingas, Machida, Fujita, Griezmann, Mosquera, even if you want to go back to add in some of those guys. Even Rafa Marin, he's moving to Villarreal, where Moliero's just moved. And we've already got a Danny Parejo, so there's some other kind of little things that are moving together. We've got a De Bruyne that we picked up as well for this kind of purpose also earlier on in the summer. And we've spoken about that on previous content, but it feels like with all that, like it's not really that much in terms of outlay. It's not really that much in terms of like, it doesn't really change the landscape of what I'm driving towards here. But like I've said before, with the recent innovations that we've seen, and when we're thinking and talking about Sorare from a classic perspective, is what your classic gallery should be providing you is as many quality options as possible. Not everyone can be or needs to be star level players, but you want to have as many guys at the tip of your fingers to call upon, to have a good fixture, to be at home, to be in form, to be bursting onto the scene, to be, oh, this striker's suspended, injured, the goalkeeper's rubbish now, whatever. And it's not like if they fail, you fail by default, because you've got no other situation, you've got no other contingency, you've got no other options is the word here, in your gallery for different selection choices or whatever. And just to kind of showcase this as we kind of finish off the kind of the rounding off of the edges for the strategy, as I kind of refer to it as, we have 16 goalkeepers here, like we mentioned. There's only 6 of them that are really like credible at the moment. A few of them are point blank pointless. But enough top quality ones there. And if some of the 50-50 ones come off for us, then as you'll see with the rest of the squad, we've got more than enough options of guys that should be fine, that could do pretty well. We've got 40 defenders here now. I've got 2 Tierneys. They're going to be at Celtic, so they won't count. And again, lots of guys in different shapes and sizes, from fullbacks, centre-backs, and again, thinking about the different combinations of formation that could be available to us, will likely be available to us, probably however you want to kind of frame it in your mind. Having a mixture of fullbacks and centre-backs is going to be a detail that we all kind of focus on here. And I've got some really star-studded guys here, some real big smashers like Guardiola, of course. Frimpong can hit a big number. Robbo and Angelino have been kind of ever-present for me. And there's a bunch of other guys, and I know they're not the best in the world, don't get me wrong, right? But they're good enough. And I've got lots of other guys here. Lenormand at Atletico Madrid, Valle staying on at Como, Jose Gaya, Mr. Reliable, Tapsoba, Ta now at Bayern Munich. You know, there's a lot of guys here that will have good enough games more often than not, and I'll be able to cycle round a lot of them. 40 cards. Let's just call it 30. And I think this season has been the biggest season I've had for reinforcing my midfield. Guys like Xavi Simons coming in, Moses Caicedo, who we won. Frankie de Jong starting to fulfil his potential from an SO5 point of view has been lovely to watch as well since picking him up. But guys like Amire, Gross, Bruno Guimaraes, Soboslai we brought in this year, as well as Dani Olmo. Never mind all the kind of legacy guys that we've had before then, like Matt O'Reilly's that could get better this year. Kang In, Goretzka, lots of busy guys that play a lot of the time. Obviously Wirtz being the standard bearer for us here with his move to Liverpool. I hope he absolutely smashes over there. Ferran Torres, another O'Reilly, whatever. So yeah, maybe there's a little bit more. De Bruyne comes into this picture as well when his Napoli move is ratified. But again, like I feel there's lots of good options here, lots of goal scorers, lots of set piece takers, lots of guys that can get the double doubles, the odd triple as well to just make their score extra shiny. And again, 48 options here in midfield. And then for forward, we've got 28 options sitting here. Now, if we've got 4 classic SO7 lineups, and let's imagine the maximum is 3 to a position, the maximum you're going to need is like 12 good options at every turn. And forward and goalkeeper, that's going to be... you don't need that for the goalkeeper, obviously, but for forward, for the outfielders, that is going to be the hardest one to nail or to make sure you don't have any issues with. I've got Domenico Berardi to add into this, probably Timo Werner to remove from it. I'm not too sure there's any other transfers in the background that would affect this, but Savio, Doku, Griezmann, Moliero going to Villarreal are 4 quality additions, I think, that add on to the likes of Rafinha, Guiri, Jonathan David, Bakwa, who we won at the back end of the season. Sané is going to Galatasaray, but Cherki going to City is a huge upstream move. Oyarzabal, Pepe, ever reliable, these guys. Take maybe makes a move. Castellanos will be staying in Lazio. Again, like how many of these guys do we need to call upon every game week? I think we've got just about enough. Let's see how the transfer window shakes out for some of them. I think Openda might be leaving Leipzig. Let's see where Take Kubo ends up and 1 or 2 others, but I feel a lot better about the forward options I've got here. And I say, look at the counts, the amount we've got here. And this is for me aiming to have 4 strong lineups to be able to field for match day 1. This is me aiming to win as much in-season cards, to win essence, to get an in-season team built as organically as possible, as quick as possible. These are the lengths, this is the level of depth I think is required, is the level of depth that I am pushing myself to have. Like there's maybe another couple of pieces that might drop in over the summer. I don't think I'm finished. I think we can all see that. It's definitely not complete here, but some huge moves that have went in our favour in terms of guys we've managed to bring in, and some maybe transfers that are going around everywhere else. And I don't think I would have been excited for the gameplay element of Classic if it hadn't been SO7, because I just do think it's such a huge paradigm change where, especially in the early weeks, there's a real opportunity to steal a march and really dominate the early proceedings of it while everyone's trying to figure out their stuff. If your plan of attack is the one that doesn't necessarily need to be the one that works, but one that is successful. You know, if you've got one that can hit the ground running, if you've got one that can not skip a beat from last season into this, then I think we'll be doing very well from it as a result. And I'm buzzing. All of these guys I've long wanted, I've been a big fan of, I've seen play football a bunch of times. I've not really got much of a hesitation that I'll be able to use them next year, or they'll be viable SO5, SO7 card options as well. So pretty hyped for all of that. And you'll need to stay tuned till later this week, right? But MLS Road to Glory is starting to pick up some momentum. We're starting to get some real green shoots of progress. And I've still got all this essence I don't know what to do with. We keep scooping up more and more every week. Stay tuned to the channel for more content as well, of course. Hit subscribe if you've not done so already. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Have you been busy in the market? Have you been selling stuff? Have you been bringing stuff in? Have you been trading? Have you been doing what I've done? A little bit of everything, really, just to make the squad as round as possible. Maybe discard some of last season's, yesterday's news kind of players. You don't need them as classics. As in seasons they were viable, but as classics you don't care about them. Anything like that. Turning trash into treasure and all that good stuff. Let me know down below. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.